live. Okay, calling to order the April meeting of the Fairport Municipal Commission. Could we have the roll call?
I can do that. Commissioner Jordan,
Present.
Commissioner Delagosh,
Present.
Commissioner Keefe,
Present.
Commissioner Shalaba,
Here.
Chairwoman Stuckey.
Here, thank you. All right, first of all, visitors, welcome everyone. Would anyone care to introduce yourselves, or do you have anything to share? Yeah.
Hello, I'm Jenny Mayer. I live at 51 Dewey Avenue in the village. First of all, thank you for whatever support you provided for getting these meetings back online. That's great to have them broadcast and recorded again. And happy Earth Month. I'm actually here to talk about that a little bit. I'm just here to ask again that you take seriously the goals of the state and the county to reduce our fossil fuel emissions nearly at more than 80% by 2050, and the role that Fairport Electric can play in that. And part of the reason that I bring this up is that while we've had some productive discussions, several of us in the community have had productive discussions with members of this board and with the administration of Fairport Electric, there's still language on the Fairport Electric website that encourages people to switch to natural gas. So on the FAQ page, there's a question, does Fairport Electric purchase other electricity besides hydropower? And the end of that answer says that Fairport Electric encourages the use of natural gas to reduce the amount and cost of incremental power usage. So at the very least, we should not be encouraging people to switch to fossil gas. We have to get off of it. We have to stop putting climate changing emissions into the atmosphere. So again, I think this speaks to the fact that there isn't a comprehensive strategy for how we're going to help this community do this transition. And I'm just asking you as members of the board to remember that you are representing a constituency that has consistently voted for elected officials who've expressed their support for climate action. So we've got state representatives who are very supportive of the state's climate law. We have county representatives who are very supportive of the county climate law. The people who own this utility support climate action. So we think that Fairport Electric has an important leadership role to play in helping this community make the transition that needs to happen in the next 25 years. And we're just asking for that leadership. And also kind of a reminder that you have, we're a publicly owned utility. You have a big public, many of whom are experienced and thoughtful and engaged, that would be willing to help with that. I mean, it doesn't even necessarily require a full-on consultant kind of contract. You could just put together a group of interested people to start thinking about, well, what are the ways that we can make these changes? So again, just asking for that, hoping that you consider putting it on your agenda in the next couple months, and that we can start moving forward on this transition as a community. So thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate the comments and the feedback and ongoing discussion about what ideas you folks have that are actually actionable by this team. So look forward to further discussion. Thank you. All right. If we could move to unfinished business. Did everyone have a chance to look at the minutes from the March 9th meeting? Any questions there? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
A second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
I abstained. I was not present.
Agreed. Thank you. All right, moving on to new business. We have a 2025 reliability report presentation.
Good morning. As you know, Fairport Municipal Commission, or Fairport Electric, is part of the American Public Power Association. As part of that, they provide us an e-reliability platform to kind of enter and track our outages each year. We've been doing this since about 2015, and definitely 2018. I've been working on this since I've been here. So each year, when we're done entering outages, all of our interruptions, scheduled, unscheduled, the APPA sends us a yearly report. So we're here to talk about the 2025 report. This year, we actually switched, or APPA, e-reliability, switched to a new software. Or it's a web-based software platform, but we switched to a new one early this fall. So we've been working on kind of getting used to that. Just a more updated, bring it up to future standards, and could have the possibility of, integrating other things such as OMS into this e-reliability platform. So just kind of making things more efficient as we go along. Types of outages that we see, a lot of them are wind, a lot of them are squirrels, other wildlife. So this is where we track all that. We track our scheduled outages and construction maintenance in here as well. So Fairport is one of the most reliable electric companies or munis in the nation. And that's all, kind of shows that all on the report that they send us each year. You can see on the right there that we're 17 minutes versus 169 minutes across the country for average outage time. And then we have our team back enters in the outages, throughout the year, one of them being John and myself and a couple others. So I'm gonna let John kind of dive into the details and the nitty-gritty and get you up to speed.
Now for the fun part, all the numbers. So as you can see here, this is kind of the multi-year trend of 2022, 23, 24, and 25. I also threw in there what other utilities of our size class are. There's a lot of information on this page. I don't want to spend a ton of time here. I want to dive into some of the more specifics. But there are a couple of things that I wanted to point out, one of which being 2025 in compared to what other utilities of our size class are, we're still well ahead of the mark in almost every category. Notice I say almost. We're still striving and continue to make efforts to increase our capabilities and our reliability, but we are well ahead of the mark even in comparison to utilities of our size class. Utilities of our size class are even better when compared to all utilities in general. So we're well ahead of the mark. We're really trying to strive and continue to keep those efforts of a reliable system. One of the major things we look at is major events and non-major events. And you'll see that marked here by that ME. So we look at all events, which includes major events and exclude major events. For that categorization, APPA sets a certain threshold of anything above this mark, whether it's a major storm, a major transmission outage, anything of those like long duration, big sustained outages they put in that major event category. That way that non-major events is our day-to-day, right? So that we have a chance to look at, those big events, how do we isolate those, keep an eye on those, and study those specifically, and then also look at our system-wide performance. A couple other things that I won't dive into too much. You'll notice MAFI, that is the momentary outages for our system. That number went up pretty substantially this year because we changed every meter in our system. That alone accommodates one of that entire number. Another part of it is we did a lot of underground maintenance for cable injection. That ties into that MAFI number pretty substantially. So that's why that number looks high this year where it normally isn't. So SAIDI,
Sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
each of the acronyms, what do they stand for?
So I'm going to go into that a little bit specifically with
Okay.
each one. I'm going to do
Okay.
SAIDI, SAFE, and KD and explain all of that. So SAIDI is Sustained Average Interruption Duration Index. So this is basically the study of the average duration that a customer experiences. You'll notice when we look at that major event category, our system overall, we had a little bit of a rough year. It's certainly not a terrible year for us. Again, we're still well ahead of the mark of others, but it was a little bit of a challenging year for us in that duration. There were a couple kind of major events that really stuck out to us as things that we had to isolate, things that we had to work on that affected a great deal of our customers. Fortunately enough, our system, through normal conditions, was actually trending very positively. So that tells us that the reliability, the system hardening that we've been doing is really pushing the needle towards that positive effort. I mean, our typical duration of outage for the average customer is only 16 minutes this year, trending positively from the 20 minutes it was the year previous, trending positively from the 18 it was the year before that. So we're moving the needle towards a more reliable system, but we're still looking at what is it that we can do to increase that reliability, right? Looking at cable injection to keep things up to speed, so we minimize those underground outages, which can take a long time to restore. And also looking at tree work, you know, are we doing everything that we need to keep that from preventing major outages? Okay, SAFE. So SAFE is, put shortly, the frequency of interruptions. And you can see it looks bad this year. There was a pretty substantial outage that affected all of our customers. That hugely spiked frequency of outages because every customer was out of power. We're well aware of that. We've studied it intently. And fortunately enough, we were able to restore things as quickly as we were capable of doing. So that is what caused that large spike in SAFE this year. But you'll notice without major events, we're still well ahead of our margin where we typically expect to be. So we were fortunate enough that we were able to isolate that just to a few select incidents that caused that big spike. But in that big spike, we were able to restore in record time. Yes. Correct. So yeah, that was a large transmission outage caused by National Grid transmission, which serves our system, something we have no control over, but we were able to restore very quickly by working with National Grid in that. Which ties excellently to my next point, Katie. That is the average duration of each specific outage. And you'll notice we are well ahead of our normal mark in that duration. Even when you look at major events, like what we had with our transmission outage, we have substantially improved in that duration of the outage. That's due to response time of staff, that's due to our capability of working well with others. We are well ahead of the mark in that duration of outage. And this is purely a mark of how we're able to respond to outages, right? We can't prevent every outage, but we can try to restore it as quickly as possible. And that's what this shows is in every category, whether it's major event or not, we are well ahead of restoring those outages. It's actually important to note, this is perhaps the first year that, including major events, we have a quicker restoration time. That's in large part due to the fact that on that large transmission outage, we were able to restore very, very quickly by working with National Grid directly. So we also look at the outage duration by category. And I have two graphs here, in large part because one of them was taken up entirely by that one large outage due to National Grid. I didn't want to focus entirely on that. So obviously we looked at that pretty intensively. It took up a large part of our effect on reliability this year. So we've studied it very intently to figure out, you know, how we responded to everything. Is there a better way to respond? Kind of come up with plans for the future. But looking at what on the right graph, which is the same information, just excluding that one category, trees were a big part of this year, and that's in large part because when there's an outage caused by a tree, it takes a long time to restore. I mean, we have to then isolate the system, get a tree contractor out there, do the work necessary to get that tree off the line, and then look at, are there other repairs that need to be done, right? So that took up a large part of it this year. As you can see, wildlife, birds, squirrel, and wildlife at the bottom there took up a big part. Wind there, also a pretty substantial bit. We had a couple of kind of small isolated windstorms that took out a little bit of the system. And then The remainder of it is truly our work on our system to keep it being reliable. Unfortunately, there are times where we have to take customers out to do the work necessary to keep our system up to speed. That's all I got. Any questions? Sure.
What's the definition of an outage? How many customers have to be affected?
So the definition of an outage is one customer for greater than 5 minutes. That's what sustained in all of this means. So any customer that's out for 5 minutes or greater is part of that report. Anything less than 5 minutes is that Mayfee number that I was talking about, momentary outage.
So is there a measure of impact affecting one person versus an entire service area is a completely different thing?
That's part of that frequency index, is to talk about how many overall customers each outage affects. Yes. Any other questions? Okay.
Nice job.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Good work, great, thank you. All right, next on our agenda is the NIMPA MEUA meeting in May.
So the NIMPA annual will start Thursday morning, the 21st. It typically goes into the early afternoon. And as soon as that wraps up, then the MEUA semi-annual starts. That'll be Thursday afternoon, then into Friday, hoping to wrap up, just about noon on Friday. I think that's also Memorial Day weekend, so they're going to try to, speed it up a little bit. So the registration packets are out. If you're interested in attending, please let me know. I'll make sure you're registered. And this will be my outgoing. I'll complete my 5-year terms on the NIMPA board, and then so Luke will stay on the MUA side. He's just starting his first year on the MUA side. So
And this is Syracuse?
this is in
Okay,
Syracuse,
okay.
yes.
Anything of note with this conference?
The NIPA, we will certainly cover what happened this winter with the high cost of electricity.
Yep.
The hydroelectric contractor we covered on the MUA side extensively.
Yep.
And the signatures that are required for that.
Yeah, and that's complete at this point, right?
It's complete for Fairport, so all
Okay.
the munis need to sign off in New York, and not all of them have.
Okay. Do we know, are they likely to, or are there?
There
issues
are
with that?
some that will need some additional persuasion and information to help them along.
Okay. Okay. But it's not fully ratified until everyone signs?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. Any questions? All right, so we need to let you know if we are able to make it?
Yes.
When is deadline for that? No?
Yeah.
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 Lots of different things going
Yep,
on, whatever
yep.
you want, yeah.
So basically let you know today.
If you can let me, I did reserve rooms. I can always cancel them.
Yeah.
But at least we'll get registration by the end of the week. If you could, that'd be wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's see. Next on the agenda would be a motion to authorize a resolution appointing official FMC delegates for MEUA and NIPA.
Yeah, we do this annually instead of doing this, twice a year, and for every special meeting, it's just easier to do one that goes on the calendar year, January, December.
Yep.
Basically, it's for NIMPA. I'm the primary. Brian is the alternate if I'm not there, and then vice versa on the MUA side. Brian's the primary, and I'm the alternate, depending. But
Yep. And usually you're both there?
yes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And do we need separate ones, since, was there separate resolution?
We
there's
can
separate
make one
resolution?
motion.
I think one motion for both.
For both of
Okay.
them, please.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Next up, we're looking at the facility encroachment agreement between CSX Transportation and FMC.
So we have an existing, so we cross
Yeah.
over the CSX tracks at Linden Road. We have a existing agreement that dates back to the 1960s for 3 circuits. As we upgrade and go to 4 circuits as part of the waste management addition, we had to amend that agreement. So the agreement they were asking for a resolution to basically authorize my signature on it. So basically, we have no poles on their property, we just cross over their property, so that's the encroachment. We also cross over the Erie Canal. We're working with New York Power Authority, who is technically runs the Erie Canal right now also, to amend that agreement. But yeah, it's existing pole line that just gets amended to increase to 4 circuits.
Is the cost for this covered under the expansion?
All of the
Yeah.
cost is being covered by Waste Management at this
Okay,
point.
that's what I thought. Okay.
I'll make
So-
a motion.
I just had a couple questions. There was something about relocation in the contract, like if, I assume that's if the tracks are expanded and we would have to is there any, like, what's the realistic,
Realistically,
risk
there is no chance of relocation. I mean, unless you're building a bridge to go over the Linden Road Bridge with tracks, I mean, would our pole line be in the way? I mean, at this point, we cross over the top of the tracks at a height they specify, so.
Sure. And then, there was something about, a $5 million, insurance,
That's
risk,
typical.
Okay.
Yeah, that's typical anytime you work around someone's property. The insurance has already been taken, that's ready to go. We'll send it out this week once we sign off on it. If you work on state property, CSX, Canal Authority, that's very typical.
Okay,
We require the same thing with village property as well.
okay.
We do this all the time.
And has there ever been any issue? I'm just curious, like I guess I'm curious, like if there's ever been a problem where we would have to exercise that policy, and if we think that $5 million would be sufficient.
To my knowledge, there's never been an issue.
Okay,
I mean, this is them covering their basis. I mean, they don't, there's millions and millions of miles of CSX railway, and there's crossings, there's millions of crossings and things that go overhead. All real property goes to the core of the earth and goes to the atmosphere, right? So while we don't touch that property, we have lines that go across that, the right-of-way associated with CSX tracks. So, God forbid, maybe there's something on a train that catches our wire, or maybe, for instance, our primary falls and goes over the tracks. I mean, that's really what it's covering. Outside of that, it's not a thing. They just want to say anything outside of an act of God, you should be responsible for the maintenance of your own infrastructure. And if there's any way a negative impact associated that impacts CSX, we want to make sure that whatever that might be, even for the small frequency that might happen, that you're going to cover that. And that's what this is.
okay. Okay, yeah, I'll set that. Thanks.
So we had a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Moving on to ongoing projects.
So as you see, the crews are working in the village quite extensively. We're actually started over in Clinton Place as we start to set poles. The village is doing gutters and sidewalks this spring, and then I think they're milling and paving this fall. But we had to get ahead of them with the gutters and the sidewalks. So we'll be doing poles. We've started over there, and then we have road crossings for streetlights. Elm Street, we're actually digging today to do road crossings for streetlights for a very similar project the village is doing. We hope to complete High Street by the end of the month. We have 2 customers we need to work with, one being the church, and one is an apartment building on East Ave that's fed from High Street, and just to schedule the shutdowns and try to inconvenience people the least for those. Our new building, control building at Hogan is up. The contractor completed the majority of their work on Saturday. We have insulation contractor coming in this week, and then they'll do a liner panel. Then we can start to install equipment and things like that out there. So that project is really starting to speed up, and the plan is to have it finished by December 31st at this point. But there'll be a lot of work by staff to get that to that point.
Great. It's nice to see those moving along.
Yes.
Any questions? Thank you. Moving on, could we have a customer service office staffing update?
Yes, we've been interviewing for customer service billing office downstairs for the past couple weeks or so. We've had probably around 30 applicants, so there's been a lot of resumes to go through. It's been going pretty well, so that'll be ongoing. And we hope to have a new hire by early May, is our hope.
Great. All right, thank you. All right, did we review the financials?
All right, so I'm presenting the February 2026 financials as well as the one-page snapshot for March 26. So in terms of February, the highlights include a net gain for the month, bringing us up to 2.22% rate of return, or that translates into $653,491 net gain to date. We are expecting about a 4% rate of return by the end of the fiscal year. In terms of expenses, we paid $169,403 for the annual payment in lieu of taxes, rent, and semi-annual management fees to the village. We also paid $82,750 for the apprentice training, safety and training, and the MEA field leader training. On the cash flow side, we paid about $5 million in electricity bills in the month of February, but we did not need the loan from the village, so we had enough cash flow for the month. In terms of March, the highlights include that the cash flow improvements for the month bring us in line with previous years. The net increase of cash flows is $1,159,481. The PPAC also went down for the month quite substantially and expected to continually decline as we enter warmer weather. So we went from the 8.3 cents to 4.8. And then we have on that snapshot a new receivable comparison chart that shows a comprehensive comparison of where our receivables are at compared to the prior years. It shows that they are actually lower currently than they have been historically, but we are seeing higher than average delinquent bills. These bills are likely to impact our billing office as I see increased call volumes going into disconnect season this week, with more customers entering into payment contracts and budget billing. So, any questions?
Questions? Yeah, I think it was roughly as we expected, where we had a hard hit in January, February, and we're starting to make that up. Yep. As payments start coming in.
What options do we offer for the delinquent bills? Do we offer payment plans or?
So we offer budget billing. We offer agreements. We'll refer customers to HEAP or any other assistance that's out there. But most people, agreements seems to be where that can get spread out over 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
And these are set by our tariff. Our regulator actually sets this. It's not something that we can just do, but we want to work with our customers. We realize the bills were extremely high January, February. That's why we tried to get ahead of it with press releases and that type of information. But same token, agreements, budget billing. We do have a slight issue with budget billing with the new software that kind of came to light this month that we're working on a solution. But we don't have an awful lot of people signed up right now for budget billing. Most of them just use the agreements to catch up on their.
So they would call and work.
Correct.
something out.
If someone's having a hard time paying their bills, they would just need to call our billing office and they would step them right through that process.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's helpful in case we hear people struggling with that. All right, any other questions on the financials? I'd entertain a motion to approve the reports that we just reviewed.
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next up, I would entertain a motion to authorize payment of the vouchers. circulated here?
I'll entertain that motion.
You make the motion?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 11, 8 a.m. Any conflicts? All good? Okay. All right, any further discussion?
I had one topic. I saw quite a bit of engagement online about the placement of I think you'd call it a junction box in front of the church. And just curious, like, just for generally, like, I'm assuming something was there and we replaced it, but just curious, like, how do we determine where those things go and how big they are and what they look like and all that?
So, I mean, I call it a festival panel for lack of a better word. What that panel does is actually the meter box and the panel box. It's the receptacles, and this is what feeds is it Canal Days or anything. Also feeds all the streetlights. So all the electrical infrastructure that is on Main Street has to be fed by a transformer, which is sitting next to it. And just like in your house where you have a main breaker panel, if you can imagine, it's a much longer stretch of street, so it's a bigger panel box, bigger service.
Sure.
So that's what's there. It's exactly what's up and down all of Main Street and basically around all of the village. These are the wooden structures. It doesn't have the roof on it yet. And Main Street is a very tight corridor. As you can imagine, most of the stretch has sidewalks that go directly from the curb to the storefront. So it's not that we have limited space. We were able to tuck one in right here at the Village Hall also, where the parking lot used to be. But yeah, so where the green space is, unfortunately, has to go. And yes, it looks like pressure-treated lumber right now, but it'll be painted by this fall to match the colors. The roof still has to go on it. They're literally starting the electrical infrastructure today. They're mounting the meter box and the panels. You'll see a crew up there doing that today.
Sure.
So all of those things tie into it. For us to have this corridor that can accommodate street lights and rope lights or holiday lights or a food truck or a vendor for a festival or anything that can be imagined down the road, that's what needs to feed that infrastructure.
Gotcha. I appreciate that information.
You're welcome.
I did see, to your point, I do see them up and down the street, so just curious.
Yeah, just to expand on like Commissioner Jordan, so I've saw the same stuff and received some of the same calls. So, it's a large transformer, but again, it has to go within our right of way, right? So there's only so many places it can go. Unfortunately, on Main Street, it is truly curb, village, and electric right of way, then generally a storefront. So it needs to be in that area. Where else do you really put it that has some room? We kind of put it between those two parcels, where the setback for that parcel is a little bit there. Otherwise, where do you really put it? So it has to go somewhere no matter what. So it's one of those challenging things. We can always try to screen it the best we can or make it an art project, as Matt said, or whatever we want to do, but the infrastructure had to be there. I get it. I get what it is, but I mean, you'll see those green transformers up and down Main. They're in front of most people's yards on every street. You'll see those types of things. So otherwise, yeah, I mean, we got kind of used to not having much, but we had a piece of Home Depot Romex on the ground prior to this project update with a streetscape and putting in utilities and that type of thing. So now it's built for the next 30 or 40 years before we rip it up again.
Gotcha.
And whatever those electric demands are going to be.
Thank you.
Good question. All right, if there is nothing further, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.